Ladies and gentlemen, it is now my great pleasure to introduce the Senator, the Honourable Mark Habib, Minister for Employment Participation and Minister assisting the Prime Minister for Government Service Delivery. Mark Habib was elected Senator for New South Wales at the 2007 federal election and commenced his term on 1 July 2008. Mark was appointed Minister for Employment Participation and Minister assisting the Prime Minister for Government Service Delivery in June of this year. Please join me in welcoming Mark. Now, Peter will be having an interview and a discussion with Mark, so I hope you'll enjoy it. And following this, there will be time for questions, so keep that in mind. Could you please welcome Peter and thank both of our speakers.
Thank you, Steve, and welcome, Senator. Can we start with the stimulus package?
First off, you can look at how unemployment is affecting the country. There's some people who are, at the moment, saying, well, we've sort of stabilised unemployment, 5.7 after last month as well, where really there was the first decline, and therefore it's no longer a great problem. As I travel around the country, and certainly in Queensland, you know, every community is different.
I was stunned to see. I thought that Queensland was pretty patchy, and I think had suffered the most, along with Western Australia, in the global financial crisis. And of all of the states, WA is coming back now. Queensland still does look economically, you know, a little bit. It's all over the place, and the main reason for that is infrastructure. There's not enough infrastructure spent here. That would be our view. Is the Rudd government put money out of Infrastructure Australia into Queensland, the Ipswich motorway and whatever. Are we going to see, but I think all of the money's run out now, are we going to see a second lot of money from Infrastructure Australia, and will some of that come to Queensland to deal with the connectivity of the place?
Well, a few things I'd probably disagree with you on. I think there is a lot of infrastructure going into Queensland at the moment. Just take a drive on the M1 and have a look at it. It's quite amazing the amount of work that's being done, and I think the state government has got probably a record infrastructure spend at the moment. I think that's good. But at the same time as that, you know, what are you talking about, 2,000 people a week coming to Queensland? So the stress on the infrastructure is going to be acute over the next decade. And when you look at the intergenerational report, I know we're going to talk about that, you're looking at Brisbane doubling in size by 2049. So yes, we're spending a lot federally, state-wise they're spending a lot, but is it going to be enough? The Infrastructure Australia has put out its first lot of proposals, which were funded largely out of the budget, but there's also a pipeline, a level 2 list of projects which are being assessed. So obviously down the line, those projects may come into play, but they've got to stack up. And I think everyone here knows that is difficult. And the second point is we've got to find the finance to make it happen. And we've got to be pretty innovative, because at the moment we're talking about huge sums of money that just aren't out there. But just my own personal opinion is that the structures that are there now, we really should have a good look at. And not just the coordinator model. For the first time since World War II, we've got infrastructure going in every state, and every state has a different purchasing model. Every state has a different procurement model. This is our one chance to have a look at those models and work out which ones are the most efficient, which ones provide the best outcomes, best quality, etc., and try and take the best from each of those states to ensure that we've got models to go forward for the bigger projects. So there's a lot that's coming out of the stimulus in terms of planning and regulation that I think we should be looking at.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's always a great pleasure to give a vote of thanks after this. You've got the property industry's Darth Vader interviewing the government's Luke Skywalker, and that's always very, very entertaining. But I must declare my interest before I begin the formal vote of thanks and just say this. Obviously, Stockland, as a company that builds the equivalent number of houses to fill a city the size of Roma every year in Queensland, has a very strong interest in planning, and it's got a very strong interest in the health of the national economy. And so the work that Minister Habib does every day is of great relevance to us as a company. But I will reflect more generally, Minister, on some of the things you've said as they pertain directly to us. Clearly, Peter has already mentioned the very valuable work done by the First Homeowners Boost. That has been a tremendous stimulus to our business, to our industry, and we commend the government for that. Too often people forget when you come out of the trough just how bad it looked in January, in December. These are challenging times, and certainly those measures are very, very welcome. One thing that I always beg of elected representatives whenever I see them, I beg them on bended knee, not quite to marriage proposal depths, but still to remember the simple truth. The best stimulus, the simplest and cheapest stimulus, the biggest boost to productivity is a cheap, well-run, sustainable, efficient planning system. Always that is the lowest hanging fruit of any reform, because it affects every single business, every single person, be it at the individual level on housing affordability or at the business level on rental, transport costs, etc., etc. So reforming the planning system is something that your PM has taken leadership on. You, I know, have a strong interest in with your background, and it's very important to acknowledge that new leadership that's coming from the federal government is really going to open up a very productive new avenue, I think, for our industry.